Welcome back to the Hard Truth Canada. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you stick to the end. I understand it's a pretty long video, but there's a lot of information in it, two different perspectives. We are breaking down the Scrum being cancelled. We side by side, CBC, Rebel News, some other journalists, and I mashed them together for a storyline. You know, I'm not trying to manipulate anything, okay? But you can clearly see that somebody's lying. At the end of it, you might even think, did the CBC really set that up? That's what, you know, that's how I feel. That's the impression I got out of it. Anyways, thank you all of you that have already subscribed. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because I'll keep putting out this content. We're at 500 subscribers. I want to hit 1,000 in the next, let's say, 3 months. I want to hit 1,000 subscribers. Once I hit 500, I'll go out and buy a better mic. But for now, it's just money's tight. I'm not gonna lie, money's tight. Still not back at work. If you've been following, I hurt myself on the job. My boss doesn't want me back. In fact, he's actually making it super hard. He's refusing the return to work program with WorkSafe. And I'm just, I'm like a couple weeks out before they cut me off. So I'm gonna have to find a job here pretty soon, which is gonna be easy for me. I'm a pretty skilled guy. So, with that said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. It took me, I'm not gonna lie, almost 20 hours to make. The one video I watched was 5 hours from the CBC, because they tried to claim that Rebel News came up and they had to cut their system off, and none of that happened. I watched 5 hours, over 5 hours of their segment, and none of that happened. Everything was set up, script. So for them to go off and say, oh, it glitched out, lying. Straight lying. You can probably hear the fan in the background. So I'll probably just cut this right now. Anyways, or not the fan, it's the heater. So, like I said, watch the video, come with your own determination. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Should the CBC be defunded? I kind of think they do. But don't take my word. Watch the video. Thanks again. Have a great day.
We just got in the line and did it. But over the last 24 hours, so much of what I call the regime media, the mainstream media, the legacy media, absolutely freaked out on the Debates Commission. The chair of the Debates Commissioner, the commissioner, as it's called, Michel Cormier, for some reason, he did a media tour. He was on CBC. He was on.
Yes.
He did so many interviews, and in every single one, he was basically beaten like a dog by people who said, how dare you allow those evil rebels? And there are other citizen journalists here too, our alumnus Kian Bexty, our friends from Juno, Western Standard. So there's really good people here. It's not just us. I think we're just the best known because we've been around for 10 years. But the Michel Cormier, the commissioner, was so roughed up by the cool kids. How dare you allow those peasants in here? How dare you allow those ruffians at rabble? By the way, the questions were really good. Their work speaks for themselves. So all day he was roughed up, and he was obviously making promises to people, well, I won't let that happen. But on the other hand, the Debates Commission is a government agency, so it's bound by the Charter of Rights. It's bound by basic rules of fairness and fair play. They can't just be whimsical. And they had already agreed to us in writing that they would allow 5 of our people to ask questions, just like, other organizations do. So how do you square that circle? On the one hand, all the cool kids, all the mean girls, all the mainstream media were saying, you can't let them ask any more questions. You've got to do something. But on the other hand, there's the law. 2 court cases in 2019 and 2021 saying you can't treat Rebel News differently than the Toronto Star or the CBC.
What did you think of what we saw in the question and answer session?
Well, just to tell you, we
tried to actually, we denied accreditation to Rebel Media both in 2019 and 2021 because we didn't consider them to be actually to do professional journalism.
Right.
But they went to court and we lost the 2 injunctions and we had to let them in. So this time we decided we could not risk another defeat in court with the precedents that were out there. We couldn't win. So we accredited the number of Rebel Media, and they went to the microphones and asked questions. They put themselves, I guess, strategically to do that, and that's what happened.
But what were a lot of the headlines about today? It was about the aftermath. It was about the fact that these illegitimate organizations that frame themselves as news organizations took up all of this time and energy and posing questions and lining up and really preventing media from having the opportunity to ask those questions.
Oh, David, I'm all for free speech, but it has to be sensible and it has to have a purpose and not be about the people who are trying to elicit it. I mean, that was a hustle last night.
Yeah, it was. There's no question. This was a hijacking. From the minute the first question was asked to Mr. Carney, this was a hijacking. I'll weigh in. These are not journalists. They hijacked the post-debate scrums in an effort for their fundraising.
Not to go back to Rebel Media, but even his response on that, like, well, we went to court last time and we lost. And even though the conditions are totally different this time, we're just going to let it slide. It's like, who's actually making the rules here? Who's really in charge? Is there a debate commission, or are there actors and other players who are influencing what's happening? And whether that's how the Green Party ends up where they end up on the morning of the debate, which was so egregious, or it's letting in these organizations that call themselves news that really are BS.
They went to the microphones and asked questions. They put themselves, I guess, strategically to do that, and that's what happened.
And nobody knows how to show up. And so then the players that are going to be the most aggressive or the most most all over things are the ones who are going to get to the mic, and that's a problem. Most all over things are the ones who are going to get to the mic, and that's a problem.
We just got in the line and did it.
By those organizations, to have the 4 of us and everybody else who's critiqued it have them get that attention, and the critique will get them money, no doubt. I don't know what service it provided to the viewing public last night. I was watching you and Rosie and Adrian, and the point you made I thought was a great one. There were no questions asked by Rebel in particular about anything that happened during the debate. It was about their own agenda and the things they drive. In another place, another form, maybe that's fine.
It is common for questions after debates to deal with issues that either weren't touched on or broaden it out, but they are broadly, in the mainstream. Okay, so it may be inside baseball, so people at home understand. Each media organization that was accredited was told they were going to get 1 pass to ask a question. Yeah. Rebel was given 5 because through whatever reasoning, they've convinced you that they have a bunch of divisions that qualify for admission, and they were given 5 passes. And then after the fact, other media organizations were told they could have up to 5 questions. Yeah. Correct? Yeah. How is it you've let Rebel set the standard there on the number of questions? Like, you can let them all in. I understand you have the court precedent working against you there, but 1 question per organization, like the CBC, we could argue we have a bunch of divisions provincially, and the Sun Media could argue the same thing. But we were all initially told 1, and then you gave Rebel 5, and somehow they became the standard for everybody else.
Well, it's because we were afraid that we would lose that battle in court. And the last time we lost that battle, we had to accredit 11 Rebel reporters. So we thought with 5, it's a number we can live with.
Okay, so I know the past precedents, but like, this is a filing with Elections Canada from this election where Rebel News has filed as a third party advertising group. They are raising money in their own documents for partisan political activities. That's not what a journalistic organization does, right?
Yeah, caveat. First of all, about 40% of that Liberal vote is not yet locked in. Now, I expect a good chunk of both uncommitted Conservative and uncommitted Liberal voters. They actually tell us when we ask them, what are you waiting for, you last-minute Liberals? What's going on with you?
Let's look ahead to tonight. What's your initial first take here?
I mean, I think for the Liberals, if nothing changed coming out of the debate, that would still be a win for them, right? Yeah. Like the goal when you are the front runner and you're the person who's going to be targeted is to not screw up. To be honest, Mark Carney could convince more people to vote for him, that would be helpful.
Latest misstep, the one with the Scrums after the debate that was monopolized by some employees of Rebel News. So
you see CBC logos here everywhere. That's because CBC produced the debate, transmitted the images, but
the decision to give accreditation to a half a dozen people from media organizations that the federal court is said are not legitimate media organizations in the definition of the term, and then being surprised at what happens. I mean, the Rebel News and True North, it's not that they're from the right, they're from the extreme right.
Because we didn't consider them to be actually to do professional journalism.
Right.
But they went to court and we lost the 2 injunctions and we had to let them in.
So I appreciate that you've lost in the past, but if they are raising money to run ads to influence the outcome of an election, surely a judge would look at that and say, this isn't a journalistic organization.
Perhaps we didn't get there.
But why not? Like, I understand you lost before. This is a material change in their conduct. They have this truck going around with a video wall promoting conspiracy theories and allegations, mostly against Mark Carney. Let's face it, like we're showing it there. You can see this on the screen. That is one of the few things we can show on TV that appears on the side of that. I mean, this looks like evidence in a court battle. I mean, you are entrusted with this authority. Why not fight for what you believe here?
We showed them in the last lawsuit doing political advocacy, and it did not convince the judge. So for us, this agreement, this argument was not going to be more effective this time.
You argued that they were raising money as a third-party advertiser.
Saying that they were doing advocacy against political candidates.
But registering as a third party in an election campaign is an official step to become an actor in that election campaign that goes well beyond the world of journalism, right?
Well, I wasn't aware of that.
Well, I mean, journalists have found this. I mean, the commission has staff, right? The commission, like, I just wonder how you could not be aware of this, or why you weren't aware of this. You have a legal team. Like, were you advised not to fight it, or did you just decide not to fight it?
No, we were advised that we couldn't win that case.
Right,
if we went to court.
But you didn't have, like, do you think, would
not,
this have changed your thought process,
well,
I wonder?
Perhaps we had to analyze it. I just learned about this today.
So we had issues last time with some of the questions that were asked after the 2021 debate, and you saw what happened last night. We have no idea what's going to happen tonight. I mean, are we going to see a replay and a repeat of this? Because, you know, I know it is first come, first serve at the mic. The rest of us are on the air or, you know, working, filing stories, and can't just line up in the microphones to get at the front of the line, which is what has happened. I mean, the minute the doors open here, a lot of these media organizations went in, set up, they are right there ready to go. What are we going to see tonight? Will there be more control on this?
And there will be measures taken to try to be more fair for all the media organizations. We have like 60 different organizations, not just political journalists who actually cover usually the campaigns. So we're going to make adjustments to hopefully make it, well, you'll learn them soon enough.
Well, I mean, I think people, what do you mean learn them soon enough? I mean, in the moment after the fact?
We're working on this. They'll be ready for the Scrums.
Will they be able to do what they did? Like, you know, Rebel News got as many questions as I think CBC, Radio Canada, Press Canadian, and CTV or Global combined last night. There were almost 50% of the questions, and some of them ventured into territory that really are not issues in this election campaign, were not issues in that debate. It is common for questions after debates to deal with issues that either weren't touched on or broaden it out, but they are broadly, you know, in the mainstream. And I'm not saying reporters should be restricted in terms of what they ask, but you know, if the debate commission is going to organize these things, it didn't seem to have control on it last night, sir.
Well, we were learning from what happened last night, and you'll see, hopefully, a fair representation tonight.
But didn't the same thing happen in 2021? Like, I remember vividly at the museum in Gatineau that the same sort of thing happened with people stacking the microphones and the questions is going in a totally different direction.
Well, there's only so much we can do to control free speech, you know.
I understand that.
And you gotta understand that.
But lifeguards got to look after the pool, right? And lifeguards got to look after the pool, right? And lifeguards got to look after the pool, right? And the debate commission was set up for this, and people are now calling for it to be completely scrapped because of what we saw last night. I just wonder if you think there's a loss of public trust in the function of this organization.
I think the public will judge us on the debates themselves. This is peripheral to the main event, and like I say, we'll work on it and try to make it.
Well, is it
better.
peripheral or is it part of the main event? I mean, you do the accreditation, you let the people in, you set the ground rules. I mean, it is all part and parcel of what's happened here.
It is, but for most people, the press availability, after, is not the most important thing.
All right, well, tonight's debate, it has the potential to change the course of this election campaign. And just like last night, Liberal leader Mark Carney will likely be the main target. There was some sort of an altercation inside there in the last little while involving Ezra Levant, who is the head of Rebel News, and other journalists. Michel Cormier has escorted Ezra Levant out. His credentials, we believe, has been revoked. Earlier in this program, you might have seen sort of some glitchy video playing because we had to go to tape because Mr. Levant and his people came over with cameras rolling and tried to interrupt this broadcast.
Erotic / because for plausible deniability. Also, the dudes are being kind of homophobic. That's one.
Do you have friends that
You
get pretty homophobic at times?
Yeah, most of my gay friends.
Most of your gay friends.
Do you know how much? Do you know how fast? What was it? What was the F thing he used?
You say.
He said, yeah.
Was it fagotization?
Yeah.
That's run through my gay friends like wildfire. They
Fagotization.
Love that. They love it.
They love fagotization.
They think it's the funniest word they've heard in a while.
So Ryan Turnbull.
Doing this voice doesn't actually
So
work.
Ryan No, I'm not. I'm curious. What, do you just think that politicians should be off the hook for saying stuff like this?
What, 15 years ago? How long ago?
He was 30.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
so
who are you?
He wasn't a politician, so this was when he was...
He was a 30-year-old man
Okay.
who called gay men perverse.
Yeah, I think I've read through your story,
Yeah.
and I know you don't even believe that that's what he said.
Oh, I
Because know you're
100%,
smart
because
on
I
that,
read
but
it.
you're just,
I read it, that
yeah,
that's what he
I
said.
read it too. And you're...
Okay,
I
so-
don't
so
think you're a
you're-
very, I mean, you don't have any sort of morals or scruples, so
Okay.
you'll just throw it wherever you want. But I read it, and I know you're actually smarter than you pretend to be, so I know you know what he was
So
doing.
he typed the words on Facebook, perverse fagotization, referring to
so
gay
that's the
men.
only
No,
thing he wrote.
just calm down for a second, guys.
No, I know, but I want you to
So
be honest.
So he said perverse fagotization, referring to homosexual men, and you think that that's an acceptable type of language for
Is that all
politicians to
he-
use?
Oh, well, he wasn't a
No,
politician.
that wasn't the only thing that he said.
yeah,
he
I
said
know.
a
I read
lot.
through what he said.
He said a lot of
Yeah, I read
extremely
through what he
homophobic stuff. And just because he's a liberal, you're trying to defend him. If this
No.
was a conservative,
Oh, so if it was so if it was a conservative, you would call for him to be removed, like Aaron
oh,
Gunn.
absolutely. But
or
Aaron
Andrew
Gunn
Martin?
hasn't said something like that. And if you could point to them doing that, please let me know.
The voice doesn't
It's
work.
crazy that you're getting so emotional about this, though. And how many of your
Honestly,
friends?
I
How
have
many of your
respect
friends
for
drop
this sort
F
of,
slurs?
I know, I think that's what they're arguing about, is the Ryan Turnbull story.
Your little chattering
That
class,
candid.
you third-party advertisers that you work for. Rebel News? Rebel News, owned by Ezra Levant, is a different company.
Is he wearing the canvas? He is not a Rebel News.
Well, I want to make sure the guys filming it is over there getting his audio. So. Do you hear me okay?
I have a lavalier mic.
Enunciating properly?
Do you want to put a lavalier mic on and then I can hear?
You have one set up? You got the levels ready for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're clearly not doing any actual journalism while you're here.
You're supposed to maintain
Really?
respectful discourse. It's right here in black and white.
Why,
Could you do
when
that?
you guys started gaming the rules and threatening to sue because you didn't get your way, I assumed the rules were out the window.
No, it's right here in black and white. We follow the rules.
Oh,
It's the federal...
was that like when it was in black and white saying you should only have one reporter credited so that everyone might have a chance to ask a question? But
You're getting
instead,
the facts wrong.
you wanted to
Nobody
take,
thinks that.
what was it, 2-minute long questions so that Poilievre only got asked 3 questions. He usually allows 4 because things move a little bit quicker at his press conference. You guys are so verbose, I'll say. Most of us didn't get a question. And what I really don't enjoy is that everyone else here was being respectful, following the rules, just being considerate to everyone else. And what you guys decided to do was to take advantage, threaten to sue, so that you could try to get more than everyone else. And now, nobody likes you.
The CBC
I
and Radio Canada had 4 questions and we had 4 questions. Why are you lying? We
Yeah,
the same number as
after
the
you
CBC.
guys threatened to sue, so that you could, that's why they got the 4 questions, because the commission...
You're making that up. You're lying again.
When did the CBC get 4 questions?
Yesterday.
Yes, after they had already
And they had
folded
the same-
to you
same in 2021,
because
same in
you
2019.
threatened to sue.
You're lying again.
I'm not.
It's in the correspondence that
Don't you have a third-party advertising truck to go take care of?
you're lying
How
again.
much have you spent on third-party advertising this election? Between Rebel News and For Canada, companies you own both of, how much money have you spent to influence this election? I'm assuming in favor of the Conservatives. How much have you spent? Like, you're a journalist,
Rebel
you must
News
be
has
honest.
spent 0.
So, Rebel News Limited, you set up...
You're a liar. This is you haven't done your homework. You're making
Everyone
things
else,
up.
You can go to Elections Canada right now. Every third party is registered. Search Rebel News For Canada, and you will see clear as day Ezra Levant as the owner of both of those companies. He has third-party advertising trucks driving around this
You're
venue
lying
right
again.
now.
That's not a Rebel News ad on there. You're lying.
It's
Why are you
owned by
lying?
Rebel. It's owned by you. Sorry. The truck is For Canada, which is owned
No,
by
you're
you,
lying again.
which is
Jesus
separate
Christ.
from
Who
Rebel
are you?
News,
You're
which
a
is also
crazy
owned
guy.
by you.
You're crazy. Control your. You got to control your emotions.
One by one.
Control your emotions.
So, I'm not just enunciating.
You're out of control. You're out of
Speaking
control.
quietly doesn't make your things any less
You're
bullshit.
completely out of control emotionally. And your facts are completely wrong.
All right,
You're an
let's go.
embarrassment. What's your name? What's your name? You're suddenly shy.
No, I'm Googling.
You're Googling your name? Why don't you tell us who you are, tough guy?
Stuart Benson, Hill Times.
Student Benson Hill, well, you're a disgrace to the Hill Times. And your facts are wrong.
Well, actually, here's the thing. I can do the job of one of me can do the same job you clearly need 5 reporters to do. So am I the disgrace, or is it all of the people you needed to do the job I do by myself?
You just got to control your emotions. You're just out of control.
Rebel News Network Limited, March 27th, registered with Elections Canada, name of applicant, Ezra Levant, mailing address, Edmonton, Alberta, T5J OK4. I wonder where that would have been. T5J OK4, I wonder what that postal code.
Well, you certainly got a tiger by the tail.
And let's go check out For Canada. I wonder who they are. Am I talking too loud now, or should...
No, you just, you don't understand, you don't even understand what you're looking at.
What work are you with nothing in front of you? Yes, the really exceptional work you're doing.
Is she telling you you're out of control emotionally? Tantrum boy. I'll call you tantrum boy.
There was some sort of an altercation inside there in the last little while involving Ezra Levant, who is the head of Rebel News, and other journalists. Michel Cormier has escorted Ezra Levant out. His credentials, we believe, has been revoked. Earlier...
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Cormier, you have a comment about what just happened?
I had a heart-to-heart with Mr. Cormier, and I think we found common ground.
What's the common ground?
Well, I'm kidding around. We don't have common. I don't know what is these. Yesterday, I think the independent journalists were a little bit too independent, and the regime journalists are too friendly with the regime. And I've seen a full court press by regime journalists over the last 24 hours to bring in limits
to what independent journalists can do.
You mean third-party advertisers, Ezra? Can you talk about the $180,000 you're spending to do advertising, voter contact, both through For Canada and into Rebel News Network Limited?
See, you're wrong on that, and that's what concerns me, is that For Canada is a different group that was registered.
It's paid $170,000 to Rebel News Network Limited. Isn't that not true?
You're getting your facts wrong, Justin, and I want to make sure you're careful. We were actually talking about the CBC, who want us out of here. The CBC want us kicked out. We're not leaving. The CBC were outraged that Mr. Cormier let us in. The CBC had 4 questions yesterday. Rebel News had 4 questions yesterday. The CBC thinks that's normal, and it's abnormal that we again, baby.
Talking to you about your accreditation, asking questions, or was it about the incident here right now, just earlier?
It was about neither. It was actually about what's his name, the bald guy in the CBC, David Cochrane. Yeah, I mean, Cochrane wanted me kicked out. I ain't leaving. Cochrane's really thin-skinned. I talked to Rosemary Barton too. I invited her to a challenge, and she declined. But that had nothing to do with it. Anyways, I want to get back to the journalism here, but it's a pleasure to be in the center of the attention. I want to give a shout out to my fellow independent journalist, Keem Bexley, proud alumnus of Rebel News. Ailey is not associated with us, but I admire his independence. And I would like to encourage everyone who's watching. You can be a journalist. If you've got a phone, you're a journalist. If you've got a Facebook page, you're a journalist. Yes, it is, Judy. In fact,
journalists hire Scrum and fundraise off of.
I don't know. You're a government journalist. Every single one of you.
No. No. I'm not government journalist.
If you get the government subsidy, you're a government journalist.
I'm not a government.
Who do you work for, sir?
I work for the Canadian Press.
Canadian Press gets massive grants from the government.
We don't get it's an administration funding.
I mean, you're literally wearing a liberal lanyard.
Because I follow the liberals. You know how it works.
So you're independent. You're owned by the government.
So, sir, we actually like to pay the game.
What do you think about the third-party advertisers that are supporting the
Only
CBC?
your own media can ask you questions. All right.
Come on, do run away. Why don't you answer his question? What was his question? I actually didn't hear the question. I'm flattered to be here. Let me just say this. I think that journalism needs to be democratized. And I think it's sort of creepy that the enemies of Rebel News in the press gallery stop us from asking questions of politicians 99% of the time. Once every 4 years, we're allowed to put a couple of questions to these high priests of politics, and there's a total freak out in the press gallery. Like, seriously, it's like leap year. 15 minutes every 4-year season, we're allowed.
Can you move your scrum now? We want to watch the start of the debate. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. What's that?
I'm Michel Cormier, the Executive Director of the Leaders Base Commission, and I'm sorry to announce that there will be no Scrum tonight with the leaders, because we don't feel that we can actually guarantee a proper environment for this activity. Alors, comme je viens de dire, la commission a décidé qu'il n'y aurait pas de point de presse des chefs ce soir, parce qu'on ne sent pas qu'on est capable d'assurer un environnement propice à la tenue de cet événement. La salle de presse sera ouverte jusqu'à 11h si vous avez besoin. The press room will be open until 11 so you can finish filing. And I invite you to call the campaigns if you're looking to
That's why.
So insanely, absolutely cray-cray, at the last moment, Michel Cormier, just came into the room, stood exactly where I'm standing now, and said, "We're calling it off." And I think he said security reasons, and people said, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And he ran away. Obviously, there was no security issue. This is the most locked down police place in Canada right now. There are 100 cops here. There's sniffer dogs. There's SWAT teams. If there really were a security threat, they would have pulled the politicians away. It was their way of cutting the Gordian knot, of stopping Rebel News from asking the questions without breaking the law. But of course, they let down the public.
He just stood at the mic at the front of the room. Everyone ran over to hear the official confirmation of what we had already been told for planning purposes, which is that the scrums with the leaders are canceled. The reason that they gave officially at the microphone was that they didn't feel that they could provide or guarantee a proper environment for the scrums. And this obviously comes on the heels of some unusual scrums last night and a situation last night that I know we've been reporting on, but also tension in the room and confrontations that were happening between journalists. And so once that started unraveling, we started to get word that this was what was going to happen. And of course, there was a scrambling to find out if it was true or not. We did get confirmation, but now we actually got official confirmation from the head of the commission that the scrums are canceled.
Here.
Well, can I just pick up on Karina if I can? Yeah,
absolutely.
There are, just so people understand, there are a series of police officers stationed behind us to make sure that we remain safe and that the media get out safely. They were not altercations between journalists inside the media room, and there was no altercation between journalists that happened on David's set. These were right-wing people that publish their own agenda and websites who confronted journalists inside the media center, who confronted David on his set, who directly and personally confronted me inside the media center. These are people that the commission decided to accredit, and that is where we are now. The situation deteriorated quickly in terms of how those people were behaving inside a professional media center where you were supposed to be doing your job. And that has left us with no scrums and a strange security situation on a night where we should be focused on the things that you want to ask us about.
It certainly didn't look like this
just
last
one
night.
point on that. We are inside a secure perimeter. You have to go through screening processes that involve the RCMP. This set we are on, they came in with bomb-sniffing dogs, searched our bags to make sure everything was safe. That's to make sure the leaders are safe and everybody in here is safe.
We'll make adjustments to
What kind of
hopefully make it, well, you'll learn them soon enough.
Well, I mean, I think people, what do you mean learn them soon enough? I mean, in the
we're-
moment
we're-
after the
we're-
fact? Like,
we're working on this. It'll be ready for the scrums.
and for whatever reason, the way this evolved throughout the day and yesterday, the Montreal police are here putting up caution tape, escorting people out. And the leaders of Canada's 4 parties who were able to participate in this debate, because they, what was the phrase? Didn't feel they could provide or guarantee a proper environment. They're not going to take questions from journalists. And look, I know not everybody thinks it's all about us, but
It is the debates commission that is in charge of who's on that stage and who asks the question. So I want to throw to a clip of the commissioner inside the media room. The audio is a little tough to hear, so crane in there, but the reaction to what he says is not.
I'm sorry to announce that there will be no scrum tonight with the leaders because we don't feel that we can actually guarantee a proper environment for this activity. Alors, comme j'ai dit,
Why?
I invite you to call the campaigns if you want to express
This is your one job.
Here. Yeah, Mr. Cormier said that they couldn't guarantee a proper and safe environment for the media. That is because the commission allowed people who are not part of the media, who are right-wing activists, to come in that room and act as though they were members of the media. It made for a very fraught environment, and there were a number of conflicts that led to the fact that this is where we ended up tonight.
well, look, I don't want to litigate the specifics of it all, but I just want to say Democracy is fragile. It's not guaranteed, and it has to be fought for and protected, not just on the big moments like leaders' debates, but on all the small moments in between. The rage farming that has gone into politics is corrosive, destructive, and toxic, and it is disrupting the norms and the values of civic virtue in this country. And if boiled over tonight, temperature needs to come down.
Is this due to a security concern, or is that what's going on? Or is this just an intimidation tactic? Wait. Is this a security thing, or is this an intimidation tactic?
Sécurité, mon ami. Bonne soirée.
I don't speak French.
Have a good evening. That's just security.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
I noticed another cameraman filming me while all the action was happening behind him. So to test if he was actually filming me, I moved around and, unsurprisingly, his camera followed me. Fast forward to a few minutes later, and I tried to get a shot of his name tag to see who he worked for, and he elbowed me out of the way. As he was exiting the venue, my colleague Alexa Lavoie attempted to speak with him in French to see who he worked for because he wouldn't respond in English to me. David Menzies also followed us outside of the building, and as I was attempting to get a shot of his name tag on his bag, he smacked my phone out of my hand and stepped on it. And then, out of nowhere, Terry Gillen steps into the picture, and as David Menzies is filming him, he did not like that the camera...
I think we have the tape for you right now because the Liberal bus was on René Lévesque Boulevard, which is just the street behind the camera here. And so as they were going out, they were being followed by some of those, as I mentioned, I called them earlier, some of those so-called journalists from Rebel News. And as they were walking out towards security, they were being hounded by them, being filmed by them. And these are just journalists who are trying to get back to the hotel tonight as there are no more scrums. And at that moment, you'd seen this clash between one of the members of Rebel News, and it seems like somebody from the Liberal Party. It continued to spill out.
Terry Gillen?
What are you gonna... Bro, you guys are out. You touched me with that.
No.
I did not touch you, sir. You're a liar. You're a goddamn liar.
You're a liar.
Oh yeah, nice try, guys. You just hit me.
What are you doing?
You've got 13 people here, and you're controlling Cian Bexley, and you're like, what? I like, for those who don't know, Cian Bexley's an alumnus of our company. He works for the Counter Signal, and I like the guy. Of course, I chatted with him. He's a friend. But my point is, let's take the shut things down. Like, there's just crazy people here, and you know what? A lot of these left-wing ideologues have been radicalized. Like that's there was some guy from the Hill Times he was screaming, they were shaking. I was saying, control yourself emotionally. Some of these guys are cuckoo ones. Now, I want to say this. I think most of the people in this room are sort of normal. You know, they realize that the news is what the leaders say and that a lot of this stuff is inside baseball. I think most, like I sat next to a friendly lady yesterday, a French journalist who was just a photographer. Today, I sat next to the photographer from the Montreal Gazette. I don't think he's particularly political. He was very friendly. So there are some really normal people in journalism, but holy cow, does it attract the wackadoodles also. And some of those wackadoodles obviously are very persuasive because they literally convinced Michel Cormier to blow the whole thing up. But you know what? That's on them. And
yes,
there was a moment where I was asked to leave the room, and I was told that he wanted to deport me, and I told them that was BS, and they agreed. So they let me back in after about 10 minutes or whatever. And the CBC were so sure I was going to be kicked out, they announced on TV that I had my credentials revoked. They were insane. The CBC made a complaint to the Debates Commission about me, asked them to deport me. I went out, I said, what's all this about? And they told me some story. And I said, that is crazy. And they said, all right. And I went back in, and the CBC, that bald guy, I forget his name, David Cochran, I think. I don't want to get that wrong. I think it's David Cochran. He was so certain that he had managed to get me kicked out that he announced it on TV. Like cray-cray. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Anyway, when I came in, people didn't know what had happened. So I had a little scrum, and I said, look, citizen journalists are here to stay. And you don't have to like it, but it's just how it is. And anyone with a cell phone can be a journalist. I'm not saying you're going to be a great journalist. Some are great, some are not great. But this snobbery, this guild, this protected elite, that's just not real. The most popular podcaster in the English language is Joe Rogan.
Yes.
Because he's so bloody good. And
Yes.
I don't think he went to journalism school. And by the way, the CBC should know that. Peter Mansbridge, I don't even think he got his high school diploma. It doesn't mean the guy's a good question asker. And there's a snobbery here. I feel like I'm in the last vestiges of the regime media. And I got to tell you guys have joined our Rebel News project in recent years, but I was there day one, obviously. And when we started Rebel News 10 years ago, I'll confess to you, I had a bit of an inferiority complex. I thought, I'm amateur, I'm not real, this is a toy, the internet's not serious. Like I just felt like the other guys knew better, did better, were more serious than me. I don't feel that way now. First of all, we actually are bigger than them. I stopped counting our viewership when we hit 2 billion. So I don't feel like we're not big enough. I know I'm as smart as the other guys. I know our journalists are as ethical. So I no longer have this built-in inferiority complex. And by the way, I shouldn't. Think of your favorite journalists around the world. Many of them are internet-based sort of citizen journalists. So I think that's what was going on here. We were in their sacred place. Normally they keep us out, but once every 4 years, like a kind of Halley's Comet, we come around. And they can't stand it. They can't stand it. And I'm not even going to say for 1 day every 4 years, for 15 minutes. I counted, and the total talk time we had yesterday was 10.5 minutes, including answers. So we had about 5 minutes of talk time. 10 minutes if you include the answers. That was too much for these people. They broke. To let the peasants in for even 5 minutes broke them.
But I want to do one quick round, if we can, about what has happened a little bit here tonight with the scrums, the opportunity to ask leaders questions being shut down because the commission couldn't guarantee a safety and security, frankly, inside the media room, and several altercations that happened here and elsewhere.
Two, they are registered with Elections Canada as a third-party group that publicizes stance on issues in this campaign. I don't think the Star, the Globe and Mail, or the CBC is registered as an
particularly on this question of admitting the Rebel News, et cetera, into this thing. I think we've now seen the last nail in the coffin of any idea that these people are just sort of alternative media or independent journalists or anything resembling it. These were bully boys and thugs. These are performance artists. These are grifters. They rely on the technique of basically staking out a completely unhinged partisan position and then say that anybody who disagrees with that is just simply partisan in another direction. Journalists have our faults. We make all kinds of mistakes. We struggle with our job, but we are at least trying to be fair to people and trying to look at the things in the round and to present as accurate a picture as we can of what went on. They're not even trying, and that is the difference.
The fact that they accredited 5 reporters, really activists, as Chantal rightly pointed out, they are registered third-party advertisers with Elections Canada. So they have registered themselves saying that they are going to be engaged in the process advocating for issues or political party. I mean, that's not an independent journalistic organization, even though if that's what they call themselves.
Well, Ezra, you made an interesting comment, too, about how they were becoming unhinged, saying, oh, you control Key and Bexty. And some of these allegations and these claims, I mean, they say that we peddle mis and disinformation, fringe and conspiratorial. This sounds very conspiratorial.
Oh, it's just crazy. I've never seen it. And here's the thing. No one cares. It was about the 4 politicians who were debating. It wasn't about the intrigues back here. I mean, maybe that's a one-liner. But for these people, it was the essential question. How dare Rebel News be allowed in? How dare Juno News? How dare Key and Bexty be allowed? Like, good Lord, it's not just about the craft. That's what they call journalism, the craft. Yeah, you know what? You're not all that. I don't know. Listen, there's some wonderful people here, I won't lie. And there's a lot of normal people who just came here to do their job. but there are some seriously crazy people. There's some Antifa-style journalists, and I think that's really what happened. And a lot of them have been radicalized. Anyways, that's my report, and I think it was an enormous victory for Rebel News. It's a disaster for Canada that this thing was canceled. But Rebel News came and did exactly what we said we would do, which was to ask fearless questions that other journalists wouldn't. Mission accomplished. And the fact that everyone else freaked out is on them, not on us. I'm glad I'm out here, and I don't think I learned as much about the candidates as I learned about the media party. The media party is worse than you know. The media party, they hate me, it's true. But I think they actually hate me in a way because we serve you, the undesirables, the deplorables, the whatever they're calling you, people who aren't with the program. That's why, here's the thing, let me close on this. Why didn't this place freak out yesterday when the CBC had 4 questions? Why did they freak out when we did? Like, what's the difference? Well, the difference is what we asked. If we had asked the official narrative questions, they wouldn't have minded. They would have cheered us. It was purely a content-based objection.
Yeah. If you would have asked about the carbon tax, there would not have been the outrage.
Why do you feel like you need to be so aggressive?
Right there, this guy here.
And not be accountable of being aggressive and hitting people with a sword. Why are you feel that you can assault our journalists repeatedly?
Hey, stay away from him. There's no need for that. There's no need for that, sir. There's no need for that. Why? Why are you, pardon me?
Take him inside the bus.
Into the Liberal bus.
Why to arresting me? So this is the private.
No.
Private place.
This guy committed 2 assaults.
It's a public place. Why are you not arresting him?
No.
Be
careful.
Don't you have a 120-pound woman to tackle and arrest? You guys are useless.
You are lying.
We have.
Lying. He assaulted my colleague twice.
We have it on video. Let's see your video.
No.
Who are you?
Hey, that is not okay. That is not okay. That is not okay. This is you. But dude, calm down, because then you'll justify them saying it is not. Calm down.
You don't know them. They are not the Toronto police.
No,
okay?
Didn't see you.
They are pug.
Here we are, Sergeant Salts.
They will arrest.
I know nothing. I saw nothing.
Just get on the sidewalk. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. Just get on the sidewalk. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. We're not arresting anybody. Just get on the sidewalk. Please appreciate that. Thank you very much for your cooperation. We appreciate that.
Could you arrest somebody? She's right there. Get on your bike.
I saw her slap him.
Why? There's nobody here.
Slap him.
He said stab him.
No. That would be an even bigger event than it already is. So this is already beyond the need for embellishment.
If I so much as asked an impolite question, I'd get arrested by you guys. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me.
It was absolutely the wrong thing.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Look, freedom of the press. I've been a public figure in Canada. I've been a public figure in the UK. I know you got to answer tough questions, and you guys, you ask tough questions, and that's fair.
Carney that very month said that was wrong what happened to me, that he believed in freedom of the press, and somehow in the space of a year and a bit, he's changed his tune. Independent media get frog marched out of Carney events, even parking lots where the venues are. with armed law enforcement. And I think Mark Carney, if he becomes prime minister, despite what he said in Davos more than a year ago, I think he's going to be worse than Justin Trudeau. I think he's going to be more censorious than Justin Trudeau. Can our country really afford 4 years of Mark Carney?